Good
There
afternoon.
he is. There he is.
Looking good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great, feeling great. I can't be complaining. Doing remainders, it looks like almost a week apart. Is that how long it's been? Well, we just did Drag Me to Hell, and here we are again. I love it.
Oh man, I've been looking forward to it all week. What an exciting couple of movies we got starting with this. So
I know. We can't start though without talking about last week for a second, if you don't mind, because
please,
I have to talk about that cameo that Alison Lohman sent me. I mean,
I think
if
that's why everybody
nobody
is listening right now to hear you comment on that.
exactly like literally, if you follow Remainders or if you follow me on social media, you would have come across Alison Lohman leaving me a cameo, wishing me a happy 1 year anniversary in Los Angeles, and then mentioning that we did the Drag Me to Hell podcast. And it
Yeah,
made my entire year, man. It made my entire year to get that.
yeah, man, I agree. Like that's so great. I was so excited to see that, seeing that message for you, and you could tell when she was mentioning "Drag Me to Hell," thinking back to her experience, she had a little hesitance reminiscing about it. Obviously, she sounded very proud of it, but the experience, it sounded like it was a little rough for her. So
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was like that it was a hard like experience on the set or if she was kind of like I literally was in hell, like she was talking about the character or something like that.
I took it as, because we obviously just watched that. You know how visceral that performance is. She's getting like thrown around left and right every 10 minutes in that movie. So I feel like she was, maybe that's the way I read it. Like she was kind of reminiscing on like how much physical endurance was required for that performance.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you know what? It's funny. You were talking a lot in that episode about standing toe to toe with like that kind of uh doofus hero, right? And I kind of didn't really realize that what Drag Me to Hell was doing was kind of making it like the woman version of Ash. And I
Yeah,
really thought about that a lot since our last episode because it's totally it, you know?
totally. I mean, that's what I love about the original trilogy, the Evil Dead trilogy, is his progression into just each one you become a bigger doofus, and by the third one he's basically a Three Stooges character, and so it's almost like an experience just watching him getting the shit beat out of him the entire time. Whereas like it's kind of subverting it with Drag Me to Hell. It's like this woman who's actually taken it with strength and confidence.
Yeah, totally. I really love that. I kind of actually like went down a Bruce Campbell rabbit hole on his Twitter, and man, he's so great on there. It's like exactly like the kind of thing you want to see, like a celebrity that you think is awesome. Like when you go and see, oh, okay, he's like exactly who I want him to be here. You know, like he's like kind of quick jabs at people, but like fun. You know, making it fun and always talking up Sam Raimi on there, like sharing articles like, oh, well, we're thinking about having a director direct this movie like Sam Raimi. He's like, why not just ask Sam Raimi?
Right. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, I mean, I had a great time getting back to it. I thought that was the perfect movie to jump back into it with you, because it was definitely a good talk. And yeah, I've been feeling good about talking about more. But yeah, I was thinking there was some. So I actually was at the gym today, and I heard this. I'm a little off topic now, but I heard the Ramones' Pet Cemetery come on my playlist while I was at the gym, and it was making me think of that text change we had for that Alice Cooper song from Friday the 13th Part 6.
Yeah, like that little meme that you sent me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was a part from the video, the actual like video that he created in, when the song was released back in the 80s. And it was just making me think how that's something that just does not happen anymore. A rock and roll band creates a song specifically for a horror movie. And if there was one that would have been great for it, it would have been Drag Me to Hell. I mean, just think if
Oh,
the Ramones did
you're
like an
right.
original song for Drag Me to Hell, how great that would have been. Or,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like drag me. Joey Ramone going drag me to hell. Like with his weird voice. Probably that was like a terrible impression of Joey Ramone. I'm sorry about that, but you get what I mean. You can kind of picture it in your head, him singing it that way.
I mean,
And
you have
you know,
experience impersonating Joey Ramone on stage.
no,
So.
I do not, and I don't think anybody should try to impersonate Jerry Ramone. To be honest with you, I do want to say though, for everybody who has listened to our, it's getting a little bit of a new format for us, isn't it? Like, and I got a lot of cool comments saying like, I really like the long form. I really like that you guys just are like a little off the cuff. And we talked, you know, Pat and I talked about, for anyone listening, Pat and I talked about that a lot, that we kind of really wanted to just, you know, gab like we did back in the, we talked about on the last episode, gab like we did in the movie store when we worked back there. And, you know, I think it's kind of made this a little brighter. And I've gotten some comments that way. So I think, you know, we're on the right track. I think each one will kind of get down that. And if you haven't listened to the new format, the first one was last week, and that's what we're talking about, Drag Me to Hell, Sam Raimi's film. And Alison Lohman left me a cameo. My girlfriend got me a cameo from Alison Lohman. She's on Cameo, so I'm going to plug her really quick. We love Alison Lohman. You should go and check out her Cameo. She also teaches acting classes, and that was like a cool way to connect with like an actual our first episode back, and we connected in a way with the lead character of the movie we were talking about. I love that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I didn't know she was teaching acting. That's great.
Yeah, totally. So, and she just posted about it today. So I figured, you know, might as well give her a little plug and then be on our way with what we're talking about today, which is a movie and a director that I had known nothing about before this conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm really pumped about it. You had texted me about this film, which is it's called Buzzard, and you had texted me that you can't wait for my reaction for it. So
I'm very excited.
I'm going to hand it over to you because I don't want to spoil my first impression without you kind of setting it up first. But this was a very interesting film.
Yeah. I discovered it shortly after it came out, which is, man, the years just kind of fly. It was a 2014 film. I maybe saw it in 2015 or 16. It won a couple of like small festival awards when it came out, and it definitely got buzz. You know, it was certainly talked about at the time a little bit, but you know, it's not one that I see constantly come up. I haven't really followed up with too much of Potrykus's filmography since then, but I know that his entire filmography is up on Criterion now, right?
Well, I didn't actually check out further films because, to be honest with you, I watched this last night because of my schedule. But
I know you're on Criterion.
I think it's only like 3 or oh yeah, absolutely. And that's where I watched this film. So for what Pat's talking about is the Criterion channel. If anybody has that subscription, both of us definitely highly recommend it, of course. And they're sort of more champions of film as an artistic medium, but also have some fun films on there as well, but also indie films like movies like this. And, you know, it's a really great place to find a lot of films that may be out of print or harder to find films, right? So that's what Pat's talking about. And his filmography, the director, Joel Potrykus, is that how you say his last name? Potrykus?
Yes. Yeah,
Potrykus. I believe all of his films are there, but the one we're talking about today, you can watch on Criterion right now, which is where I watched it last night.
Yeah, I mean, so it's essentially, very small budget indie film, starring Joshua Burge as a low-level scam artist. Basically, he's working as a temp in a mortgage company, and it's the simplicity of this character study that I love so much. I mean, you can certainly kind of read it as not an anti-capitalist film, but it certainly throws the main character into the fringe of capitalism on society. And we'll kind of get into it a little bit later, but I definitely have always kind of seen this in alignment with a lot of similarities in terms of its characters to the Florida Project that we discussed previously. And to be honest, a lot of Schaumbrecher movies where it focuses on characters on the fringe of society, what their experiences are, and what it's like for them in a pretty personal way. This movie, however, it has no romanticism about his characters. These are pretty shady characters, especially, I mean, the main one, Marty Czekatansky, real big piece of shit. essentially. And this is what I love about rewatching this so much and seeing his reactions as he's scamming people, small stuff, even for just a couple bucks. And soon he starts getting, he starts drowning in his own scams that start catching up with him.
Yeah, that's a good synopsis of the film. The way that I saw this was in the way that the Florida Project feels like the characters are a little bit more like, I'm just going to say it from the get-go. This film made me want to pick up my camera and walk down the street and knock on my friend's door and say, let's go make a movie. You know, it felt very, very much like he didn't have any budget, but knew how to make a fun story with his best friend. Like, I don't know much of their backstory, but it definitely feels like the two actors, Joel Potrykus, the director, is actually in it as the character Derek. And when you talk about the characters on the fringes of society, it didn't feel like a Sean Baker film to me, in the way that they didn't really feel like there's a little bit more fun injected into it, like the playfulness between these two characters and how they're kind of like calling each other dorks and stuff like that. But like the danger in a lot of scenes is like, as the word that I've heard you use before, palpable. It's there. Like when, especially that one scene where he has the glove on and Marty has the glove on and he hits Derek, and Derek's like, I'm bleeding. I think I'm bleeding, you know? And like at that point, like that was a very dangerous scene, because you're kind of waiting for the main character for a lot of the movie to say like, well, what really is so dangerous about what he's doing? He's just kind of doing what everybody in the world does. And they're trying to like cut corners. Like, life in general for me is like the most annoying when I watch people on social media and things like that try to like cut corners. Like I need to get ahead and just like kind of do things a little like half-assed, because I just need to like kind of weasel my way down the road, and nobody really puts a lot of effort towards anything. And that's very much the character of Marty. He's throwing in and calling the Totino's pizza people, you know, when he gets his rebates to like, no, so like, what do I get? Do I get a free pizza? Is it 10%, you know, 10 cents off? This is the kind of character he is. He's looking for any kind of way to skate by. He's got a job, but like, he knows he doesn't care about it. He's going to get that paycheck, whether he sits on his ass or works hard. And it's kind of the opposite of his friend Derek, who works next to him, who is kind of like, oh man, you know, this job is awesome. This is a kick-ass job, which you know, it's not, you know, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you can kind of see Marty's side of it, that he kind of like, but yeah, why should you care about a job like that? You know, like it's meaningless, it's stupid. And you can kind of be empathetic to that character a little bit because of that, you know, that people do try to just kind of cut corners to get through in life, but any way they can make, you know, 5 cents over here, $5 over here, they kind of do it. And especially if they don't have, if they're not in a great situation in their personal life anyway.
Or if they're emotionally stable.
Or if they're emotionally stable.
Which in the case with Marty, I mean, the movie opens with him essentially having a fit of rage by himself in his own room. So, I mean, that's what I love about that opening scene, is it sets a tone where he's just kind of, he seems calm, he's playing a video game, and then just out of nowhere, he just explodes while slamming this, the Nintendo Power Glove that's not working onto the crate next to him, because he's frustrated that it's not working. And that kind of that really does set the tone for the character in terms of, you never know when this guy's going to explode on somebody, which.
Yeah, I guess that's great, because
sorry, which follows through. No, just saying, it just follows through to the end of the film, which is, I think, well, maybe we'll get out of the way. This is not necessarily a newer movie, but I doubt many people have seen this. So I think we're cool to talk about everything except for the very last interaction, because that would be giving a little bit too much away, but everything else seems okay to talk about. So not too many spoilers right now.
Yeah, I mean, I have some questions about the ending of the film. I don't know if we can. I think we should talk about that. But we'll do that behind the paywall. I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like there is a moment of violence, I think, is what you're talking about, that might be giving a little bit more away than we should. But I would say that you just kind of hit it right there. And what I was trying to say earlier, that you're kind of waiting for something violent to happen, because up until this point, it's a little bit more playful. It's a little bit more like relatability. This guy's just trying to like get a couple extra bucks over here. He's doing a couple things that like, yeah, they're illegal, but like, should he really go to jail for it? Like it's like a slap on the wrist type of things. And even the character of Marty himself is saying, oh, this is small. He's doing fraudulent checks for like, peanuts money, because he found out from his mom that he can sign over checks to himself. And so through his job, he's able to do that with like some, I don't know, checks that people don't even care about. Like he calls them up and says, I have, $2 in your name. It's a good thing. And people just hang up on him, right? Because they think it's a telemarketer. So he gets the idea that he can go and cash these checks over to himself. And again, he's always looking for a way to cut a corner. That's a way to like make a couple extra bucks. People are letting him do it. I mean, society is letting him do it. Basically, the tellers are like, give me the,
just go to the ATM. You could send it over to yourself right there. Yeah. So that's like his becomes his big scam, which kind of we'll get into, kind of catches up with him. I mean, the one that I really find interesting is so he's working on his glove. He's working on his glove. He's like, you can tell he's like using scissors or something, and he cuts his hand. And so he cuts his hand, it just cuts to him to work the next day. And he's setting up a faux scenario to pretend that he got hurt on the job so that he can get it covered by the health insurance at the job that he has, because he doesn't have health insurance outside of work. And so he goes to the doctor. He certainly is acting like he's trying to do another scam. But then when the doctor realizes, oh, he faked this so that he can actually get medical attention, the doctor is okay with that. And Marty's like completely surprised. And it's almost like he's so conditioned to scam people that like he doesn't even realize like, oh, I mean, I should have health insurance, but in this society where temp workers, only work part-time, they don't have access to healthcare.
Well, even that doctor let him get away with it too. He knew. He said this looks like an older wound,
Right.
And so he let him skate. Like that's the thing, is like society keeps on saying yes to all of these things until they, of course, don't. Until he gets caught, which ultimately happens to everybody who tries to cut a corner. It only works for so long. And I do like that scene, because almost in that scene where he's kind of like brings the blood and he's got the paper cutter and he's going, what he's doing. He's like, I'm going to use this to get some insurance money to pay for this cut that I really need help with. And in a way, the audience is kind of like, that's kind of smart, man. Like no one's going to know here. Everybody's stupid. They're going to let you do it. And it's a slippery slope, right? That wound itself starts to fester as the film goes through, and as he goes lower and lower down the funnel to the pits of hell.
No, that's I love watching that wound just kind of get worse as it kind of represents the degradation of his own character. And I mean, it reminded me exactly of Shape of Water. I think the exact same thing happens to Michael Shannon's character. I think it's his hand that he hurts, or is his finger gets cut off? I forget.
Don't kill me, but I have not seen Shape of Water yet. So
that's okay, man. That's all right.
I know. Well, you think a Guillermo del Toro movie I would have seen by now, especially one that has so many close relations to Creature from the Black Lagoon. Right. So I almost have like the walk of shame right now. So I apologize.
No, man, that's cool. It's I recommend it. It's definitely a good one. I'm still shocked that movie was as successfully mainstream. Wait, did that win Best Picture? It was nominated.
I think it did.
It did.
Yeah. I know for sure it was nominated, but yeah.
Which is still kind of bonkers to think about that movie. Well, I mean, once you see it, you'll understand how weird it is.
Well, sometimes, it's like it's time to give Guillermo del Toro like his Oscar. I think when Scorsese won his, it was kind of like he should have won for like 18 movies before the one he won for, which I believe it was The Aviator. Did he win for?
Director? No, Departed.
Oh, for Departed, which he should have won for. Okay, so you get it. There's like a million movies that Guillermo del Toro should have won an Oscar for.
That's true. Totally concur. But yeah, Michael Shannon is the antagonist in that movie, and I'm pretty sure he gets his finger cut off, and it just slowly decays throughout the entire film, and it's showing that he gets his morality is weakening throughout the film as well. So it definitely reminded me of that, and this was a couple years before that film. So
well, that harkens back to also a lot of like old film noirs and things like that. You know, the main character gets some sort of wound. It's usually like they get shot, and then like that's the beginning of the end, right? Like they try to continue to hobble along, but like that was the one thing that like as soon as something breaks away at like the physical mortality of the lead character, like everything crumbles around it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I try to keep my attention span up to keep up with those, so I'm doing my best. I caught it in this one, so
yeah. Well, there's a lot of you know, depth to a movie that seemingly looked like it was no budget at all, you know.
There's also sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
No, I didn't find the budget. It was a crew of 6. I know that when I was looking at some of the research, he talked about it, and it was a 30-day shoot, crew of 6. And so I was obviously super guerrilla shot. And he even mentioned how like didn't have permits for half the area. So like
yeah,
there's a McDonald's scene where he gets to the point where he has no money, so he's like pulling a burger out of the trash to pretend that it was just not good, so that he can get a new one, so that he can.
The main character,
Joshua Birch, Marty. He pulls a burger out of the trash and exchanges it so that he can get some food that day. And he was mentioning that they didn't have permits for that scene, so he was just like holding a camera by his side while Marty was doing all this and just taping it.
It looks like that too. It looks very John Cassavetes. Like he's at the booth, like right across the room when he's like zoomed in a little bit because the camera is like shaky a little bit, which I loved. I love that independent filmmaker style. And like, that's the thing that I've talked about my nephew before. And I kind of talk about it a lot in general, is that a lot of people feel like they need to have like the best cameras and they feel like they have to have everything like so perfect for them to be able to make a movie. It's like, no, like the first things first, have a great story. You could kind of like have it goes with anything, and music is the same way. Have a great song, and at the core of it, whether it's recorded like shit or not, people are going to connect to it. That's why, a lot of those old Misfit songs, they're not great recordings, right? But like the songs are so kick-ass. The Ramones are the same way. A lot of times you just have to like realize when you have something good creatively, that it doesn't need to be as polished as you want. Like, I'm not saying I'm a proponent of cutting any kind of corners. I'm just saying like make the art great first before you then add all the bells and whistles to put it together.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to put it. But yeah, maybe taking a step back, I feel like so far what we discussed, maybe it sounds like this movie is a little dreary, and it's certainly dark, but this movie is extremely funny, and every time I've watched it, I laugh throughout the entire movie. Did you find it amusing on your first watch?
That's kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of this. The reason why it doesn't feel like a Sean Baker film, like there's kind of like precious moments in Sean Baker films, especially in the Florida Project, but this movie is like got too much of the comedy, especially between the two characters, that you almost kind of like are laughing along like they are your buddies that you like went over, and it's like, oh yeah, these are like the two idiots down the street. I was just gonna say, I mean, they act like 14-year-olds. Absolutely, like these are not adults at all when they're at work, when they're interacting with each other, what they're talking about, their interests. They talk about Bigfoot, are always playing Nintendo, and they certainly are not acting like the adults that they are. And that's right. Even like kind of using like the gay racial slurs that they say in it, like that back and forth, like as buddies or whatever. That's like totally something that I could see two guys in their basement saying to each other like that, like they're not saying it in front of anybody else but each other. And he's like, dude, that's so gay, like, or whatever. You can just see that, like, that's that kind of relationship that those two have, like they really like each other though. Like, and I didn't know if there was at any point, like some sort of like love innuendo between the two of them, but like they definitely make a point of saying that, like especially the Derek character, like, dude, that's so gay, or don't get on the treadmill with me, like you're so close to me, and my wiener's right up against this handlebar, and I don't want your wiener near my butt or whatever. Like, did you get that at all or no?
Not. I mean, I feel like Marty barely tolerates Derek. Yeah, Marty only kind of hangs out with him because he's just kind of there as his work friend. I'm not saying he has like antipathy towards him, but he has his own shit, and he's a pretty selfish person. So he just kind of hangs out with Derek out of convenience. And so it starts getting to the point where the Czech starts catching up with him. He's suspecting that he's going to get caught, and so he basically just invites himself over to Derek's house to stay because he's worried that. I think he even says like they probably have cameras at my house right now. So
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
he just
he's
sets himself
paranoid.
up. Yeah, he just sets himself up in Derek's basement, and this leads to like this 20-minute basically montage of them hanging out at night in the party zone, as Derek calls it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's them doing the stupidest shit. I love the psych gag where they're putting bugles on the treadmill, and Derek.
I
is
know,
catching them.
like you don't even know what's happening there. You're
Right.
kind of like following it in the cameras. That's a beautifully shot
Right.
scene,
And it's so stupid, but it's so funny.
and it adds way to the humor, right? Yeah, that's like what's so great about it. Yeah.
So Derek is on his. It's a close up to the treadmill as you see bugles going by, and it just cuts over to Derek's face as he's trying to catch them as they fall off the treadmill, and it's him just trying to do a record for it. And this is how these guys are spending their Saturday night.
Yeah, and just to follow up from what I was saying, like the idea to have like be insane, like things like, dude, get your feet away from me, that's like so gay or whatever, to me felt extremely just like it added to the juvenileness of the characters themselves. I didn't really feel like they were like in love or anything like that. I just wanted to asterisk that. But that kind of like talk is, I feel like, why these characters are so juvenile. Like they're just best friends. They're not best friends, but they're just like high school kids, right? I mean, what age would you think they are?
Well, they have nobody else to hang out with because everybody else is like, these guys are idiots.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, they're probably like 30. Yeah.
You think so?
That's how yeah. I mean, what do you?
I mean, they both
older or younger.
Well, Derek lives with his father, so but it seems like Marty lives on his own, and he probably like a character like Marty would have to. It feels like a character like Marty is such like a loner, like that nobody would tolerate living with him. So like he's just like forced to live by himself.
And so the food in this movie is atrocious. It is it is a recurring theme throughout the entire movie, and we're going to get to the spaghetti scene, which is epic. But the food that is consumed throughout this entire movie is awful. It's just the most processed garbage foods. I mean, Hot Pockets are the backbone of their diet. There's a scene when Marty is at home and he's making dinner. So he pulls out a pizza from his oven, puts on like Doritos, covers it, drenches it in ranch sauce, and then puts the second pizza on top of it. And I was like, I know Darren is getting hungry for this right now.
Well, at the very next scene is like him with a mask on. And like, like a lot of what I love is like that the camera doesn't really move around too much. And speaking of that spaghetti scene, I mean, it doesn't move around at all for like 3 minutes. Like the next scene after that, I don't know what you want to call it, pizza sandwich that he makes that is entirely gross. It's just like him listening to loud, heavy metal music with like a mask on. And that mask is another recurring theme. Like he puts it on a lot, and you're not sure if he's like it's like a horror mask to the audience who hasn't seen this. And you're kind of like, is he wearing that because he doesn't like who he is? Is he wearing that just because he's trying to sleep and doesn't want people to see him? Is he wearing it because he's in hiding right now? Is he wearing it because he wants to be scary? Like, there's a lot of things to think about when he puts that mask on. And it's a very conscious decision that the director makes, because there's scenes too where it kind of cross cuts where he's on the bus, and then all of a sudden, like almost without a glitch, you see him with the mask on,
Yeah. Well, he's doing it
sleeping.
Oh, say it again.
Oh, and most of the time it's because he's sleeping, because it seems like he's like waking up in the mask or whatever.
Well, he's definitely at his own home by himself, listening to music with the mask on. So
right.
It's certainly, it doesn't necessarily have to be him hiding from somebody else. It's just him putting it on because he's maybe comfortable with that. But yeah, I don't know. It's aesthetically, it adds a lot, and then it gets you to like, what is going on in this character's mind, which, I don't think you're always supposed to know, behind the
No, I
mask.
don't think so. Yeah, I think he's supposed to be a little bit of a question mark. And maybe sometimes that scene with the mask is supposed to be more so for the audience, just to have like a little bit more of that like unnerved feeling.
Yeah. So he ends up taking off. He gets scammed himself when he goes and picks up Hot Pockets for Derek. The clerk that he's buying it from scams him. So it's like the only time, and it's like for $5. So it's like this is another small time scammer trying to scam Marty. And this, again, it's like, you're not sure if he's going to explode reacting to this. He ends up exploding. And again, Joshua Birch is like so good in this movie, kind of being always on the edge of, when is this guy going to fucking just pull a rage fit? And is he going to hurt somebody? And that's a great scene when he does that. And so he takes off. He's basically out of options because he's so angry at Derek, and this kind of gets us into the second half of the movie, where he's just going into downtown Detroit and trying to survive on his own with these checks that he still has is pulling money from.
At that moment, he's in the convenience store, and there's that nice reversal that he's the one getting scammed now. And he realizes that there's nothing he can do about it, though. So he does kind of get in a rage and knock something over. And then Marty decides to leave because he doesn't want to get in trouble for that. He kind of like, in a second, like you're saying, that actor did such a great job of like, oh, maybe I better pick this up, and then like realizes like, I've already done the thing. Like, I got to get out of here, and then leaves. Sorry, man. There's a lot of LA, as I call it, LA fuckery today. Like, it's like fucking helicopters and sirens. But anyway,
it's peaceful here in Chicago. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah. Until like 2 minutes later, when I hear the sirens going off over there. So the idea that he's going to have to leave, he does decide to go to Detroit. But before he does, the one thing you missed there is that he does go to Derek's house, his buddy that we've been talking about. And that's the scene where I think something's going to happen to Derek here, because he really, really pressures him, knocks him on the ground, and is like holding him down because he wants to get money from him. And I'm thinking in my mind, because the director's done such a job to build that Marty is dangerous in a way, there's, Derek might get hurt here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is kind of tough to watch. Especially watching the first time. Again, like, it really emphasizing you never know what level of rage or violence this character is going to go into. It starts off with him just slamming his fist on the table, and then slowly progresses. And I think that scene does a great job of just like, what is going to happen to this character.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes happens in Detroit. So now he's on the bus and he's going to try to kind of like, I don't know, escape it, or like
he's just running.
Like, it always
there's no thought.
Right.
He's just leaving and getting away from his home that he thinks he's not safe at. And so there's no thinking. So he has $200 and he spends 180 of it on his first night at this nice hotel. So obviously he's just not thinking about the future, not at all, barely in the next 24 hours he's thinking at all. So,
well, we can cut to talking about this amazing spaghetti scene that, if you're in the audience here, you're going to love it when you see it. It's also a little strange how it's shot, because the camera doesn't move. It's all about the acting. It's just a guy eating spaghetti literally for like 3 minutes on screen, which is like in the
I
most
timed
gross. It. Yeah. Oh, you did.
4 minutes and 52 seconds.
Wow. Yeah. It's very much like, when is this going to cut? It really puts you there. It's like an interesting, unnerving scene, and it's gross, of course. What did you think when you first saw that?
If you haven't seen it, so it's a single shot. The camera doesn't move. 4 minutes and 52 seconds. Marty has $20 left. So he orders quote, a $20 plate of spaghetti from room service.
Yeah.
They deliver it, and he's sitting on his bed, with his, the nice robe that they give him in the room. And he pulls the plate and he just starts shoveling it into his mouth in the most atrocious way possible. It's just like hanging from his mouth. It's falling like down onto his chest and back onto the plate. It's like it's dribbling out of his mouth. He's just watching TV and just shoveling it in. And it's 4 minutes, almost just under 5 minutes of him doing this. And his performance makes it honestly one of like the most interesting scenes out there. Certainly the best eating scene I've ever seen in my life, in his performance, showing like, what is this character doing? What is going on in this person's mind as he's just making a mess of himself with dinner?
Yeah, like the best part to me is not the scene itself. It's the idea that he does go to this amazing hotel. He's got all this money that is like, all he has to his name is $200, like you said. And he basically spends all of it. Like he puts it to the max,
Right.
and is living it up for one night in this beautiful hotel, where he can just like act like the biggest asshole. Like the next scene is him jumping on the bed and there's chips everywhere, and he's in the nice robe, but it's like the room is just trashed. And then cut to the next scene where he's checking into the next hotel the next day, which is like $20 hotel. Yeah. And I just think like the juxtaposition of the two places is just like it's cut and dry. It's like there's no middle ground. It's just like the best and the worst, right?
Did you notice what he was eating in that $20 a night hotel?
Remind me.
A can of
SpaghettiOs.
Of SpaghettiOs. Just
you're
a
right.
shitty
You're right.
Open can, not even pouring it into a bowl. He's just eating a can of SpaghettiOs out of the can, and it's.
Don't act like you've never been there, Pat. I know you've eaten SpaghettiOs out of a can before.
Oh, 3 times last week. I'm just saying it's a good juxtaposition, as you say. So no judgment at all.
I know. I was going to say, look, you haven't been to my place in a while. I mean, when times are tough, you've got to eat the SpaghettiOs out of the can. But right. Times are really tough for Marty here. And again, the juxtaposition of having a $20, as he called it, a $20 plate of spaghetti in the nice hotel the night before. Now he's eating SpaghettiOs, and that's the point. Also, he finds out at this scene that there's only one key to this room. Again, thinking about cutting corners. What are you going to do? It's also a survivalist thing, right? This
is not, a lot of this he brings on himself, but a lot of his scams are to eat and have shelter and have health insurance, access to healthcare. It just is, you can make a statement about like how lazy this guy is, but at the same time, half of what he's doing is just for the basic necessities to get by in life.
Well, I say, and I've been in this position in myself in the last year. After the pandemic, times have been tough for a lot of people, right? And especially if you've lost your job or things like that. And I always tell people the same thing, if you have nothing, what are you prepared to do to bring yourself to get back to where you need to be? And, I've just gone through that myself. Like, what do I have to do to make $30 here? $50 here, whatever, and then like literally looking at your bank account all the time and saying like, okay, this service that I have, I don't need Netflix anymore. Like those, you start to like all the fringe benefits of life, like you start to realize like those have to go, these little things that we all take for granted a lot of times when times are good, they don't mean anything, and this character is literally faced with that every day. Like, how am I going to get by today? Like that's a hard fact about life in general for a lot of people, is that it consumes your mental thoughts, the mental stress about, I can't just go outside and enjoy the day today. I have to think about how I'm going to get by today and then start it over tomorrow. And that Marty is like that in every scene to me. He doesn't seem like he's worried about it. Don't get me wrong, but he has to figure it out.
No, I don't think he's concerned with it at all. The only times there are just 2 instances in the movie where he kind of is forced to reflect on it, and you can tell he's not comfortable with it. And it's when he's checking in with his mother on the phone. You never see his mother, but there are 2 scenes when he's talking to his mother, and you don't hear what she's saying, you only hear his reaction, and he answers a couple questions that are clearly like kind of probing questions, like how are you doing, and how are you doing, are you getting by all right, or how are you feeling mentally maybe, or are you kind of getting better from where you were at before. And you could tell he's just so uncomfortable with that type of conversation that he gets off the phone as fast as possible, or at least starts talking about something else like the checks or whatnot.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's kind of an awesome move to like not ever hear the mom's voice, you know, just to kind of hear the reaction. Sometimes like a lot of times in these kind of scenes, you kind of can hear what's happening on the other end, but I like the decision to just hear the, I'm good. Like we all do that, right? Like, I don't want to get into it.
Well,
Like
no,
you're
I mean,
obviously not good half the time,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like you don't want to get into a long fucking drawn out story about why you're not good, you know?
right. I mean, that's a typical reaction from men is I'm doing all right, you know, regardless
Right,
of the circumstances.
right.
But you're making me think of, I mean, just taking a step back, this movie is entirely Joshua Bird. She's in every single scene. He's the focus of every single scene. And again, that kind of reminded me of last week's movie, Drag Me to Hell. It was basically kind of the same setup where Alison Lohman was the primary focus of every single scene. She was physically in every one of them. And so that really kind of like sets a tone for like whatever's going on around, it's all about this character at all times and their reaction to what's happening.
So we obviously cannot get into the spoiler alert, right? I
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't want to give too much. Like I said, if our listeners have seen this, we have fantastically great listeners. But I think a lot of people have not checked this one out. So, I mean, I feel like just that last scene was the only one that we can kind of skirt around. But
okay, and I think we can still talk about. Okay, so the scene we're talking about, to set it up without giving anything away, is that he's in a predicament where it's building up the whole movie that at some point he's going to get caught for some of the little petty crimes that he's doing.
Right.
Again, these, you know, to this point, there's no big crimes that the character has committed, right? So something happens, and we'll skip to the next scene of it's, you know, it's a pretty serious thing that happens, and all he kind of worries about is that can I go home yet? Like,
right.
calls Derek, and he doesn't say anything, doesn't even you don't see on the character's face that he has any remorse for what just happened or anything like that. All he wants to know about is, hey, is it cool, is the coast clear at home? It's kind of like you know, again, another kind of juvenile way of going about it. Like, you know, is anybody asking about me, is everything cool? And he's like, oh, this lady at work isn't there anymore. He's like, well, she's the only one who could have gotten me in trouble for the check, so all right. And it's like jubilation in his face, and like all of a sudden everything seems to go back to like it's okay, like he's off scot-free. Is that kind of how you saw it?
I mean, that's precisely what was terrifying them the entire film, was just worrying just about getting caught. And if somebody else took the rap for him, which, you know, not to give too much away, but like it seems like that's what happened, or that's what's implied. It's like a flip of the switch, and he's completely okay with somebody else taking the fall and him at least being perceived. There's nothing that tells you that he actually is all right, or that he's not going to get caught with anything, but in his mind, he's scot-free from all the forgery and whatnot.
What's the lesson there? Is that, you know, again, without giving away about why he got to that point or what he did, what's the lesson in a character like Marty at that point? Or like, what's the forewarning tale there for, you know, the rest of us?
Oh, I mean, me personally, I didn't take any lesson from Marty as a character. Just watching his experience unfold was, as an experience myself as a viewer, that's the primary thing I took from that. I mean, I personally don't think there's anything to learn from Marty.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe
if you can enlighten me, I'm all for that, but I don't have anything for Marty.
Well,
is a despicable character who's put in situations where his backup is against the wall, and he often reacts in very unique ways, we'll say.
Well, maybe let me put it this way. Do you know anybody like Marty in your own personal life, or maybe not that extreme, but you know people who act that way?
Fortunately, not. So,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people
I can think of a couple
know
of people
somebody
from
who
high
slinks
school.
by like that, right?
I can think of a couple of people from high school that maybe turned out like Marty, but I have not kept in touch with them. So
I guess that means that, there must be something about you that's good if you're not surrounding yourself with people like Marty. So we'll leave it at that. Pat, you must be living a decent life if you're not surrounded by a bunch of Martys in your life right now.
I got to be talking to enlightened people with good music taste, like such as yourself, Darren. So.
Okay, I knew I was going to loft that softball too. So thanks for hitting it out of the park. Yeah. But yeah, at the end, I don't know, again, if this is a spoiler, but the ending of the film I wanted to talk to you about, because I don't really, there's like something pretty amazing that happens when he goes in front of those televisions, and I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Well, we could talk about. I feel like that's fine to talk about. I mean, I love the way that scene ends. So he gets off the phone with Derek, cuts to the amazing metal music that's been playing kind of off and on throughout the movie.
Yeah,
I checked out the band. It's called Bog Rot. That is playing. It's again the heavy metal, like black metal, is playing, and it sets the tone for how everything's kind of quiet, and then just at the flip of a switch, this character might go off. So he's running for like a good minute and a half of just jubilation, just running through the streets. It's just so happy that
with the glove on, by the way.
With the glove on, I don't think we even mentioned or fully described it. It was a Nintendo Power Glove that he was creating throughout the movie and sharpening it, and he turned it into a Freddy Krueger glove with full-on scissor blades as fingers, just like Freddy Krueger. And even at the beginning of the movie, the first scene you see in his apartment, he has a poster of Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger up. So it's obviously his idol and his inspiration for making this glove. So yeah, he's running down the street with the Freddy Krueger glove on, and he gets to the resale shop with all the TVs. Have you ever been to a store that actually does that?
But I mean, you've seen movie that's like such an 80s move, like 80s movie move,
Yeah, but I'm saying, I've seen that in dozens of movies, but I don't think I've ever walked by one in real life where you're walking by and you see there's a camera pointing to the sidewalk, and so you'll see yourself on the TVs that are for sale.
Right. Like I immediately think about those old movies where like a lot of people are like watching the TV in the storefront, and like there's some kind of like crazy world event going on and everybody's huddled around it, and you see like all the TVs stacked upon each other, but not necessarily like filming them, but right. That happens, right? Like I imagine like that's like a gag they could do in like Stranger Things, or something too, like because you feel like it's a very 80s thing, but in real life, I've never seen that except down the street here on Vermont. Right next to the very first Walt Disney studio that he opened. It's like a skateboard shop, and across the street there's a storefront that has TVs in the window. I took a photo of it actually because I thought it was cool looking. I thought maybe I could use this for painting or something, and but it wasn't on. It wasn't like they were filming you, but it looked just like that scene. It was like a bunch of TVs stacked up, and it was cool. I really liked it.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things that mostly, if not entirely, exist in the movies, which I'm totally okay with. I'm just it's something that you'll see, but it doesn't necessarily happen in real life.
Well, like what captured my attention of that scene is that when he's standing in front of it, there's like a little bit of a supernatural thing that happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely talk about it. So he's standing, he's just staring at himself. It's this great shot where he's just looking at himself in the camera. And you can tell he's just like, this is kind of maybe the first time he's reflecting on himself, maybe, ever, certainly for the first time in the movie. And then that middle screen, the character walks away. It's like, it does not reflect anything else in terms of, like, as you say, it's supernatural. Nothing in the entire film has ever even alluded to anything like that. But he sees it. He sees the middle character on the middle screen walk away with everything else staying the same. And you could tell he's appropriately freaked out by it.
So again, what does this even mean? Because I know we can't talk about the scene that happened before the jubilation. So right before this scene, though, he's running and happy. And
Yeah.
this stops him in his tracks. It's a good way of saying it. It's the first time he's had to see himself, right? And so there's all these different images being displayed back to him and on these TVs in the storefront window. And at some point, the middle version of what he's seeing back, which they're all the same, the middle version decides to leave the frame. And it's such a weird scene to me. I'm sure like it's gonna come to me tomorrow. Like, what was the director trying to say there? I can't figure it out for the life of me. Did you take anything away from that, or?
I mean, a piece of him is gone forever. I mean, it's as simple as that. Is my reading is that he crossed a certain threshold, and his decay has gotten to a point where he's not going to be the same person as he was before.
Well, that's very interesting because we don't get to see what happens to Marty after that scene because it's the end of the film. And I never really thought about it. And that's why I asked you. So your gigantic brain over there, who seems to always pick out things that I don't kind of understand. And I really think that could be true. This version of him is completely altered now. This version of Marty after the incident that we're not talking about for the audience, for our remainders audience, after that incident happened, you can't go back from it, right? So Marty is forever changed, and that could be why the director made that move to have what we're talking about happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to put it. And again, maybe just wrapping up the film portion of it, at least the plot, but like Joshua Burge is so good in this movie. I love a lot about this movie, but like his performance he's such a unique looking and unique performing character that, again, like half the movie is just him by himself on camera, and half that time he's not even speaking. I was looking at a few things written about the movie, and Potrykus discovered him. He's a musician. He was originally a musician, and he still is, but that's how Potrykus discovered him for casting purposes. And he saw him on stage performing, and he was like, I don't know if this guy can act, but I need to put him in front of the camera to capture whatever energy this guy's putting off. And clearly, so I think the first full length movie they did together was called Ape. I have not seen it. It's supposed to be great. It's a couple years before this one. And I think it was largely like a non-speaking performance. Or it could have been his previous movie, but I know one of them was like an entirely silent film. And then they became more comfortable with each other. And that's why they did Buzzard together. And they've made another one called Relaxer together as well. So obviously this is a duo that's been working together for a while. And I can definitely understand why, because again, Burge is like such a natural talent on screen.
Yeah, and that's well said. He is an amazing sort of physical actor, and there doesn't need to be much said, and that is so obvious why that scene with the spaghetti that we mentioned earlier was so wonderful. And I wonder, how much Potrykus loved John Cassavetes, because that was like the entire thing about John Cassavetes that I mentioned earlier, but one of the things is that Cassavetes would always hire people right off the street just because he thought they were like, well, one, he wanted the raw non-acting quality, right? But also, kind of budget concerns, a true indie filmmaker. There's a lot of reasons why. Let's see, this guy's interesting. Let's put him in the film.
I need to beef up my Cassavetes knowledge a little bit more. Women Under the Influence, that's Cassavetes, yeah?
Yeah, that's with his wife, right?
Yeah. Okay, I saw that just a couple of years ago. And then what's the one that we were talking about last year with
Husbands?
called Husbands?
Was it Husbands? Yeah, I think so. Did you see it?
I did watch that as well. Yeah, which was fantastic. But I think those are the only two that I've seen from him. So it's a little bit of a blind spot for me, for his filmography.
There's a lot of scenes in Cassavetes films that do the same thing as that spaghetti scene, by the way, where he got crushed by critics and stuff like that, for just like letting the camera go on, and they're like, why did I need to sit through that scene? And one of my favorite things, and usually Ben Gazzara is one of the main Cassavetes actors, and like I'm not sure if I would have to read up on it, but I almost guarantee that most of the scenes he just like let people get drunk on film, and like there'll be like huge scenes of people around the table, where they're just like kind of getting going through the crazy conversations, and you're sitting there in the room almost, you're kind of like got a seat at the table, but seemingly no reason for the conversation other than to like just be an interesting scene.
Not something that would fly anymore with directors, at least on a mainstream level.
Well, but that's what I mean. Potrykus
Yeah.
seems to, not give a shit, which I like. That's why I felt like I could go over. That's why it was an inspiring film, because you can feel like it can pick up your canon, that you have in the closet, that you felt like at one point you were going to make movies, and now you could pick it up again and go out and shoot what you want,
Oh,
and I don't know, it's crazy. It's like these days you can even like what he was saying. I was at the McDonald's and like, yeah, obviously you can go into a McDonald's and pretty much start shooting.
Yeah, I forget the tool that he was using, but cloud. But I saw an interview where he was mentioning just how fortunate for him to live in a time when the tools are available to do all these things with such ease.
Yeah.
Obviously, going back, I don't know, I'm thinking of like not too far ago, but like Robert Rodriguez, like even like 30 years ago when he was making like El Mariachi, it's like he probably didn't have the level of tech. I mean, he certainly didn't have the level of technology to make his low budget film, but like Potrykus making these movies in 2013 or 14, almost everything can be done on his laptop.
Yeah, I feel like Robert Rodriguez like started Troublemaker Studios like simply because like he needed to figure out how to do it all himself. And there's also like stories I remember hearing about him when he was coming up and like really getting a lot of like accolades, that like the way he got his money to fund his film is that he sold his body to science and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if that's true, but like if it is, Robert Rodriguez, total badass.
But back to Potrykus, I took a peek at his top 10 Criterion movies, and it included some ones that I know we like. Slacker was on there for him, and Stranger Than Paradise.
So Jarmusch, and then we were just talking, or I was just watching a bunch of his films before, Linkletter, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, he's definitely mentioned Jarmusch a couple times. So the two of those, and then I think one that just kind of is in my wheelhouse, RoboCop as well. So the Great American Film.
Yeah, of course.
So the Great American, and I don't know. I mean, if you know me, I'm not joking. But RoboCop is kind of the Great American Film, showing the combination of capitalism and violence in our society. But the three of those, I think, definitely sum up what Potrykus is all about.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I love about you. Like you're such a like at times so brainy, like just like such a smart guy, and then like you throw shit out like my favorite movies, like RoboCop, Evil Dead, or like things with like these like completely goofy, crazy characters that are is kind of fantastical and kind of over the top and stuff like that. Even if there is like a little bit of grain of something to take away like about society or something like that, like for the most part, like you can enjoy those films and laugh along and enjoy them more than you can something that's going to really make you think about life.
I mean, what Paul Verhoeven did with RoboCop says more about America and its state than any movie in the last 40 years. So, and I will fight for that. So,
wow.
I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who thinks that. I'm going off of a lot of other takes with that movie. I mean, again, especially with its relation to the media and violence and for-profit police. So.
Wow.
I will stand hard for RoboCop until the day I die, for sure.
kind of how I feel. Like I'll stand hard for Signs, and a lot of people are like, "Dude, Signs? Are you kidding me? Get the fuck out of here!" You know. But
No,
like,
Signs is fantastic. Yeah.
I love Signs, and like I don't even give a shit about like the crazy terrible CGI on the aliens, because to me that's a movie about faith. And I think that there's some scenes in there that you just cannot deny, especially Joaquin Phoenix in The Swing Away, given all of the cuts that Shyamalan is doing leading up to that with the main character and his questioning God. That Swing Away with the breaking of the bat, I just think is like what I want out of movies, and it's in my top 10 films of all time. Like it's that I'm that crazy about that film, and to this day, I feel like I haven't met anybody that like agrees with me like very much at all about that. But I don't care, you know. It's like it's a lot. But I will say, M. Night Shyamalan, I love you. If you ever listen to this, I gotta say I'm sorry for this thing. I will give you the benefit of the doubt on everything. I can even find some things I like about The Happening. I can even find some stuff I like about The Happening, even though that movie is not great. But Old was terrible.
Okay.
It was
I didn't see it.
absolutely hard to get through, and I was so sad. The only saving grace of it, one thing, and it was like it was shot so differently than I've ever seen M. Night Shyamalan shoot films before. Kind of like relying a little bit more on maybe some computer effects that happen in some of the camera work, but the camera moves around a lot, and it's an interesting way to shoot that film based on it being just like on a little like desert kind of scenario. So I like that about it. I'll say that because I have to give him something. Because I love M. Night Shyamalan so much. But yeah, pretty bad.
Hey, everybody misses, except for me, of course. So, yeah, so.
Well, it's just like a bummer for me because I'll tell you, like, I don't want to spend all day on M. Night Shyamalan. I'm sure we'll get into his filmography at some point because I know we're both fans. But it is a bummer for me because I like love seeing him like coming back a little bit, you know. After The Happening, I feel like it was hard for him to kind of like make films again. Like everybody's like waiting for the twist, and everybody's kind of like, but you know, you've kind of made a few duds in a row. And then The Visit was so kick ass, and that was like low budget again, right? And it's like then he's back with doing Split, which was kick ass, right? You know, and then it's like I even liked the Unbreakable sequel. So maybe he always just comes in threes, you know. So we need to make three duds again and then come back to another three.
That sounds like the plot of a Shyamalan film. It comes in threes.
Yeah, totally. Well, I don't know if there's anything else to say. Do you have anything else to add to this?
I mean, one last thing to say, just to kind of showing what kind of performance Burge gives. I saw Potrykus talking about what was in the script for that spaghetti scene. And again, I'll go back to the spaghetti scene because it's it's so epic. All he had in the script was, quote, Marty has the best plate of spaghetti he's ever had. And that was it. And so as they're filming it, they had no understanding that Burge was just going to start shoveling it in his mouth like that. And they had, he mentioned that like the entire crew just started, it was only 6 of a crew, so not too many people, but everybody just looked at Potrykus like, don't cut. And Burge simultaneously is just like, I'm just going to keep on doing this until somebody says cut. And nobody called cut. And so that's what led it to a 5-minute scene of him shoveling it in his mouth. And largely being the reason why we're talking about this movie now today.
That's the magic of creating art.
Oh yeah, love it. But that is Buzzard again. So I love our new format, you know, kind of setting the tone of new and old movies. But again, this is kind of what Darren and I kind of have always done best, is champion the films that we love and kind of discuss them in a way that maybe other people will find joy out of them as well.
You got that right. And, you know, from what I hear, you can like us on Facebook, you can like us on Instagram, you can, from the main thing that I heard about podcasts is like basically like rating us on like things like iTunes. So if you guys are out there and you dig this, Go ahead and do all that stuff. But I'm going to tell you right now, I could give a shit about all that. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of all that stuff. I just want like you guys to enjoy this stuff. So let somebody know. However you do that, just let somebody know about the podcast. If you like it, let them know in real life, online, however you do it. I don't want to be the proponent of like, go and do all this shit for us. Really, you don't have to do anything except for, maybe watch the movie and enjoy it, right?
I fully agree. At the same time, rate and review would be great. Or go on TLB and buy one of those T-shirts because they look fantastic as well. So another great way to support.
Go listen to my band TLB, or go read a book that Pat is pushing on his Conscious Book Recs, which I've read a few of them myself, and they have helped my life extremely. So we've got other things to offer out there. Let us know what you have to offer. Talk to us. Let us know if you dig the new format, and also if you've seen the movie, let us know if you liked it.
I mean, that's what we're doing here, so we definitely love to hear back. But yeah, speaking of TLB, you got any shows coming up?
No shows to speak of. We're trying to do kind of like a thing out here in LA and like kind of do like a few like satellite things. I'm really like working on trying to get a art show going out here actually. So It's kind of been a little bit more of my focus. I've been just painting a lot and stuff like that. So
I'm loving the Frankenstein you got up in this week. So
yeah, I figured like, as we do these, since we're putting the videos out, put like a little bit of my artwork in the background and then people can see it. And then they can go to darrenvarel.com and buy it if they like it. Just putting it out there.
There's so many good pieces. It's such a good style. I love it.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Here I am saying you guys don't have to do anything. And now I'm saying, go buy my art.
Love it.
Well, cool, Pat. It's great to see you again, man. I'm looking forward to the next one. Do we know yet what we're talking about next time?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a little bit more popular one, Under the Silver Lake. With Andrew Garfield, which is one that I've been a huge fan since it came out. And again, kind of going back, we're going to be kind of talking movies that are, some are known, some are unknown. And so I think we're going to find a good balance of like, getting to talk about movies you have seen, but then at the same time, maybe talking about ones you haven't seen. And so I think we're going to keep that going. And this one kind of seems to be in the middle. But I'm excited to see your reaction to it. It's set not too far from where you are right now.
That's right.
And it's got a old school Chinatown vibes with the Shaggy Dog detective story with plenty of 90s nostalgia, which definitely resonates with me quite a bit.
Awesome. Oh, that being said, see everybody back here next time to talk about Under the Silver Lake. And while I'm doing my research, maybe I'll go for a walk around the Silver Lake so that I can get myself immersed in the spirit of what we're about to talk about next week.
And I'll walk around to the music box. Probably going to be doing that this weekend.
Yeah.
I saw New Beverly's going to be playing Serial Mom soon. So you have a great opportunity to go check out some John Waters.
Listen, every time they post something, I know I'm going to be broke because I want to see everything that they play at that theater. The experience is so great. I could not love going there more than I do. We'll make it a goal for me to come back to Chicago and come to the music box with you. If you come out here, I'll take you to New Beverly. We'll go to the Vista and, the Los Feliz 3 down the street. And we'll have a good time.
Sounds like a good trade-off.
That's right. All right. Well, see you next time, I guess, huh?
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.